From rotting submarines to entire fleets of abandoned vessels, here are the 10 most unique abandoned vehicles. Number 10. Japanese Midget Submarine. If you ever find yourself on Kiska Island, you may just accidentally happen upon one of Japan's secret weapons from World War II. There's currently a Type-A Midget Submarine slowly sinking into the soil of Kiska Island in Alaska, and it's been up there since 1942. These submarines are extremely small, and having to operate one would be a total nightmare. Just looking at the rusted metal hull slowly sinking into the green grass of Kiska Island makes a person wonder how two men could have possibly climbed into such a claustrophobic vehicle and then navigated it underneath the water. It is truly mind-boggling. The midget submarines operated by the Japanese were roughly the size of torpedoes, and they fired even smaller torpedoes at the hulls of ships at point-blank range. As the story goes, the Japanese had been intending to deploy 6 of their midget submarines from Midway Atoll, but were defeated and had to divert their submarines to Kiska Island in July of 1942. It does seem like a strange place to launch a submarine from, considering they ran on batteries and only had a range of about 90 miles when moving at 6 knots. These type of subs could dive 100 feet below the surface, but they were not totally reliable for getting the soldiers inside of them back in one piece. While these were not necessarily suicide submarines, those who operated them had a pretty low probability for survival. Number 9. Boeing 737. Bali is undoubtedly the epicenter for backpacking and tourism in Southeast Asia. Bali is one of Indonesia's most beautiful regions, home to many gorgeous beaches and incredible towns. And it's also home to a mysterious 737 airplane, currently sitting abandoned on the Bukit Peninsula at the southern tip of Bali. The weirdest part about this abandoned aircraft is that nobody knows who the owner is or was. This strangely abandoned airplane has become a hotspot for tourists, who now come to Bali not only for relaxing on the beaches, but also for seeing this very weird airplane. It sits perfectly upright in a field, with absolutely no damage to it, other than what the natural elements have done. Some people were trying to get the abandoned airplane transformed into a restaurant, but that never did happen. This strange aircraft sits abandoned in the middle of a field, and no one is claiming it. Chances are somebody landed the airplane discreetly and didn't have the financial ability to do anything else with it. Maybe they went bankrupt the moment they touched the ground. Or maybe it was a runaway convict. The truth is, nobody knows, and all the theories are just speculation. Number 8. The Ghost Blimp. This story takes us back in time near the beginning of World War II. It was 1942, and the fight between the United States and Japan was heating up. At the time, blimps were being used by the US to track Japanese submarines operating off the coast and destroy them. There was a particular fleet of 12 blimps, notorious for patrolling the California coastline. In August of 1942, the 16th to be exact, one of the blimps from Airship Squadron 32 departed from Treasure Island in the San Francisco Bay. Its job was to locate and destroy Japanese submarines. It was piloted by 2 experienced and reliable men who knew exactly what they were doing. Shortly after takeoff, radio communication went dead. One of the pilots reported seeing an oil slick on the water. Then there was complete radio silence. 3 full hours passed with absolutely no radio contact. That was about the time reports came in that the blimp had drifted 8 miles off course and collapsed. It collapsed right in the middle of a residential street, luckily not injuring anybody. But the real mystery of the Ghost Blimp was born when authorities inspected the blimp to find the 2 pilots gone. There's absolutely no sign of either pilot. The door latch was open, the safety bar no longer in place, but all of the pilot's belongings were still inside the cabin. It looked as if 2 pilots had opened the door and stepped out to plunge into the ocean. Their bodies were never found, and nobody knows why they abandoned the blimp or where they went. Fun fact, the Ghost Blimp was repaired later and eventually became the Goodyear Blimp, glimpsed by millions of Americans at sporting occasions all over the country. Number 7. Nissan Murano Mystery. This story is less about a unique vehicle and more about a pretty unique case of abandonment. Back in 2019, a mysterious Nissan Murano became an internet sensation after being parked in the parking lot of a grocery store in New Mexico for roughly 6 months. What made the case even stranger was that the car had a license plate from Alberta, Canada. That is an incredible distance away. Nobody knew who left the car there or why they would have driven so far just to abandon their car in the grocery store parking lot. Even stranger was the expiration date on the license plate, which was from a year earlier. A year after the fact, in May of 2020, CTV News reported that the Los Alamos police in New Mexico discovered the whereabouts of the mysterious driver. According to the authorities, the man left the United States in 2019 destined for China and never re-entered the US. It really makes you wonder what happened in the mysterious stranger's life, to have him drive from Canada to New Mexico, then board a flight for China while leaving his car at a grocery store. Did he take a taxi to the airport? Was he kidnapped? What happened here? Number 6. British Columbia's missing boats. Here we have one of the most astonishing recent stories of mass abandonment. In a recent article by CTV News, they reported that there are an estimated 1,400 boats abandoned sporadically along the British Columbia coast in Canada. These are boats that have been left completely abandoned, and some of them are actually in pretty good shape, while others are floating around half submerged and filled with trash. And even though the official number is 1,400, experts from the Dead Boat Disposal Society claim it could be as many as 2,400 boats left to rot in the water. This is such an outstanding problem that the province is trying to find innovative ways to stop people from abandoning their boats. According to officials, the authorities have pulled at least 60 boats from the water in the past 3 years alone, which barely makes a dent in the number of abandoned vessels scattered along the coastline. So if you're looking for a free boat, you might want to head across the border to Canada and go along the west coast, where you may find yourself with more boats than you know what to do with. It's practically a boat graveyard. Number 5. GM EV1. One of the rarest and most unique vehicles in the world has been abandoned in a parking lot in Atlanta. This is the GM EV1, and it was the first realistic electric car ever built by a modern automaker. However, it was abandoned as a project over 15 years ago, after only 1,117 EV1s were built. This car was declared as a failed experiment, but that doesn't make it any less rare or unique, or any less sought after by car enthusiasts. The EV1 is incredibly valuable. The EV1 recently found abandoned in Atlanta is actually pretty gorgeous. Red electric car is sitting in an almost completely empty parking garage, perfectly between the lines, coated in a thick layer of dust, with several rather crude drawings scrawled into its hood and windshield. What those mean graffiti artists probably didn't understand during their fun was that they were doodling on one of the most unique cars in the world, currently worth hundreds of thousands of dollars. What a waste. Number 4. Belgian traffic forest. The Chatillon car graveyard in Belgium is one of the biggest in the world, filled with abandoned vintage cars supposedly left behind by US soldiers after World War II. But locals claim it's actually a simple car dump for dead cars post-World War II. In any case, this is definitely one of the spookiest car graveyards in the world. Many of the cars have either been stolen or removed over the years, or sold as scrap. But the images captured from this graveyard reveal a losing battle between automobiles and Mother Nature. Seats have been taken over by mold, trees are growing out of windows, and everything is rusted beyond compare. But don't plan on taking a trip to this abandoned car heaven anytime soon, as in 2010, it was cleared completely. There is no trace left of this oddly mystical dead zone for cars. Number 3. Ornery Amazon driver. There's nothing overly peculiar about an abandoned delivery truck, but the story behind a recent Amazon driver quitting his job in the middle of his route and completely abandoning his truck, which was full of undelivered packages at a gas station, is somewhat hilarious and definitely peculiar. According to Fox 8 News, the delivery driver was only 22 years old and had been delivering packages for Amazon at the time. However, apparently sick of his job, the man claims that he filled the delivery truck with gas, left the key in the ignition, and walked away from it while sitting at a gas station. He then quit his job through Twitter, tweeting to Amazon the exact location of where he left the truck. Talk about going postal. Number 2. Queen of Scenic. Amazingly enough, number 2 on today's list is yet another boat from British Columbia, Canada. But this one is a little different from the hordes of abandoned sailing boats. There is an entire abandoned ferry that somebody placed behind an island, tore the metal out of for scrap, and then forgot about. According to a report by CTV News, the Queen of Scenic was abandoned behind Anvil Island, and it quickly became something of a party spot for young people, who went drinking inside the boat and littered it with awful graffiti. The report claims that the owners of the boat, BMH Salvage, abandoned it behind the island and left it to rot. Then, young people began coming from all over just to party aboard the abandoned vessel. What did they expect? In any case, the abandoned ferry is quite a sight to see, sheltered against the back of the island, with the mountains rising in the distance, and the rust slowly decaying its once white hull. Number 1. The McBarge. Our final unique abandoned vehicle today is the disastrous McBarge from Vancouver, Canada. In 1985, as Vancouver prepared for the World Fair Expo, McDonald's decided it would be a good idea to build a 2-story floating restaurant they called Friendship 500. It was supposed to be a clever name since it would be the 500th McDonald's restaurant opened in Canada. They constructed it on a 187-foot-long boat that could seat roughly 390 people. While this restaurant was insanely popular during the expo, it was actually an enormous disaster afterwards. It was unable to operate and cost the company roughly $150,000 a year in maintenance. It was eventually closed and sold to developers, moved down the river, sold again, rented to be used at a film location for Blade Trinity, and still sits idle somewhere in the Fraser River. It's highly doubtful that this barge will ever sell burgers again. Which of these unique abandoned vehicles surprises you the most? Do you want one? Tell us what you think in the comments below, and be sure to like, follow, and subscribe.